The story begins with our main character, Alta, a young knight who has fought on the battlefield against monsters. The knight leading the group told his subordinates that there were a lot of monsters, so they needed to go support the captain. Alta replied that it wasn't necessary. The knights looked at him, and one asked why. While attacking the monster, Alta answered that it was his prey. Then he swung his sword, cleaving the monster in two. The knight stood there in awe, exclaiming that it was incredible, that it was the power of Alta's sword, which had made him the youngest knight in the kingdom. The other knights also supported Alta in the battle against the monsters. Alta remarked that this reminded him of his previous life. Alta thought to himself that, in the world he was reborn into, he was once known as Raoul, a man who lived only for the way of the sword. Alta continued to explain that, to measure the limits of his strength, he had wandered far and wide, participating in wars as a mercenary and defeating every enemy, to the point he was given the title Sword Saint. He had no family or friends to keep him company, but he had reached the pinnacle of swordsmanship all on his own. That life, which he thought would end quietly and alone, took a different turn after he died. After his previous life, he was reborn into this world as Alta. Thanks to his sword skills and knowledge of magic from his previous life, he has served the country for 2 years. Thanks to his latent magical potential, his abilities are now nearly on par with his time as the Sword Saint. Now that he has been reborn as a new person, he is determined to make the most of his abilities to live a more efficient and relaxed life. From now on, Alta will work to earn money, enjoy himself, and prepare for a comfortable retirement. The knights then announced that the subjugation was a success. Alta replied that they would return to the royal capital. In his thoughts, Alta recalled the kingdom of Galdea, where he was born, and that he was serving as one of the knights protecting the city, a member of the Sirius Black Knight Order. This was his workplace. Alta approached his commander, Commander Lemire. Commander Lemire reported that while the complete annihilation of the abnormally breeding demonic beasts resulted in some injuries to the squad, fortunately, no one was killed. It was a brilliant victory. Alta expressed his gratitude and then asked if he could receive a bonus for each monster he defeated. Lemire asked if he actually kept count and suggested that money shouldn't be his main concern. Lemire wanted to know what Alta planned to do with the money. Alta replied that he didn't have anything particular in mind, but he was saving up for something useful in the future. Lemire asked what a young man like Alta was dreaming about and what passion burned in his heart. Alta replied that he didn't have anything that particularly interested him. He explained that simply wielding a sword in battle no longer sparked the intense desire for strength he had felt in his previous life. He meant that he wasn't interested in anything in particular and suspected it might be a sign of burnout. He had never told anyone about his reincarnation experience. Alta replied that he was still young and wanted to take things slow. Lemire acknowledged his point, saying they could consider it. However, Alta turned her down and asked for work instead. Lemire replied that he was certainly direct, but she liked that about him. Lemire chuckled, and Alta thought that Lemire was a bit of a pain as a superior, but it was nice to be able to talk with her. Then, Lemire spoke up. She said she had the perfect mission for him and handed him a piece of paper. Upon receiving it, Alta asked if it was a bodyguard mission. Lemire explained that there were rumors circulating, and until they could confirm her safety, he would be her bodyguard. Alta wondered about using a high-ranking officer just for a rumor. Lemire replied that if it was just a rumor, the mission would be simpler, and this job also paid double. Alta agreed, saying, "All right, I'm in." Lemire appreciated his quick response and mentioned that she had already arranged the security detail. As Alta left the office, he thought about earning double the pay for what seemed like a simple job. At Fiorum Academy, the higher education department, where students were greeting each other. When Iris arrived, everyone immediately made way for her. Many students here came from noble families, but Iris was different. She was the only daughter of the Reinfeld family, one of the kingdom's 4 great noble houses, and was also known by the nickname Holy Sword Princess. The students at the academy couldn't help but marvel at Iris's beauty, and just being her classmate was a source of pride. One boy advised his friend not to even dream of talking to her. Another student said that Iris was the top candidate for the next monarch. And at only 15 years old, it seemed some people were just born with everything. As everyone took their seats, Iris gently nudged Arya, asking if she was dozing off again. Iris also expressed her gratitude to Arya for helping her with morning practice. Arya replied that she would always be there for Iris whenever she needed her. Iris affectionately touched Arya's head, thinking how cute her friend was, and thanked her again. Then she mentioned that the swordsmanship exam was coming up, so it would be best to relax a bit. Arya reassured her that, as long as it was Iris, everything would be fine. Iris acknowledged Arya's support, but also said she still needed a lot more practice. She was determined to keep working hard until she became a swordswoman second to none. The bell rang, and Alta walked into the classroom, telling everyone to take their seats. All the students stared at Alta, wondering who he was. Iris couldn't help but think that he looked like a kid. Someone in the class remarked that maybe Alta was someone's little brother. Alta approached the teacher's desk and introduced himself, saying he would be their homeroom teacher for the day and also the temporary instructor for sword arts. He introduced himself as Alta. This announcement left everyone stunned, and Iris, unable to contain her surprise, immediately cut him off, telling him to stop joking. She walked up to Alta and demanded to know how he could call himself the sword arts instructor. Iris asserted that she hadn't come to the academy to play games with a child. The other students in the class agreed, remarking that it was strange for their homeroom teacher to change within just 1 month. Iris had once won the National Sword Arts Tournament, which even adults competed in, and she had been nicknamed the Sword Saint for her exceptional skills. However, she also held an undefeated record for getting lost. A boy in the class chimed in, confirming Iris's achievements. He mentioned that even their previous sword arts instructor had been defeated by Iris, and expressed doubt about whether Alta was qualified to be a teacher. He even declared he would petition the headmaster. In response, Alta proposed a challenge to everyone. He suggested they engage in a mock battle with him, and if he lost, he would leave the class. At the training ground, Alta stood ready for the challenge. The boy who had objected earlier insisted that Iris didn't need to fight for him, claiming he was more than enough to take on Alta alone. He then asked if Alta even knew what a mock sword was. Alta explained that the magical blade wouldn't draw blood on impact, but it would still hurt when it hit. A nearby student suggested they go easy on Alta, and Alta agreed, then proposed a deal. By the end of the class, if any of them could land even a single hit on him, he would let them win. Alta then asked them all to attack him at once, since taking them on one by one would be too much of a hassle. He quickly took down a few students, clearly demonstrating his abilities. Someone in the group noted that there were 20 students in total and wondered what was happening. Another student chimed in, suggesting they should go easy on Alta, and others from a distance agreed. Arya told Iris that Alta was seriously strong, and Iris had to admit that Alta was much stronger than their previous instructor. Deciding to step in, Iris told all the other students to stand back so she could face Alta herself. The boy who had initially challenged Alta remarked that this was the real fight now, implying Alta wouldn't win so easily this time. Alta, feeling the pressure, said that the remaining students were next, and since time was running out, they needed to hurry. Iris confidently replied that it wouldn't be a problem, and apologized for underestimating him. She declared that she had seen through his technique and was sure his childish tricks wouldn't work on her. Arya offered to help Iris, but she refused, insisting that she alone was enough to handle Alta. Drawing her sword, Iris informed Alta that she was attacking. As Iris launched her attack, Alta skillfully defended with his own sword. She noticed Alta was faster than before, but she couldn't find any of his blind spots. She wondered how such a powerful kid could have appeared in their kingdom. Despite her best efforts, Iris was forced back by Alta. He asked if she acknowledged his skills yet. Undeterred, Iris continued to attack Alta, and some of the other students remarked that it was exciting to see Iris putting pressure on him. Another student commented that Alta and Iris were moving so fast he couldn't keep up. A different student noticed something strange and pointed out that Alta was handling all of Iris's attacks with ease. Alta agreed that moving around to find a blind spot was the right approach, but he noted that it was difficult in such an open space. Just as Arya tried to attack Alta, declaring she'd give it a shot, he dodged her attack as well. Iris told Arya to stay back, but Arya insisted that Iris couldn't do this alone, so they should attack together. They coordinated their attack on Alta, but suddenly the bell rang, signaling the end of class. The other students remarked that not even Iris could defeat Alta. After class, Alta assumed his role as the homeroom teacher and temporary sword arts instructor. He asked if anyone had any questions or objections. Iris, curious about Alta's age, asked him. Alta revealed that he would be turning 12 this year. Iris remarked that he really was young and that his age would normally place him in the primary division. Alta explained that this was his first job and reminded them not to judge a book by its cover. He expressed his hope that they could all get along. The students in the class agreed with him. Alta reflected on the situation, realizing his appearance could be a hindrance to his role as an instructor, as some students might object to having such a young teacher. Regardless, he had successfully infiltrated the academy for now. Alta recalled Commander Lemir's words about Iris being a candidate for the throne in the Order of the Knights, and how Lemir wanted to assign a bodyguard to her. He remembered that Iris had refused the offer, claiming she was strong enough and didn't need one. Alta glanced at Iris and thought that, just as Lemir had said, Iris considered herself very powerful, though perhaps not yet at the level of a sword saint. Alta turned to the students, suggesting they head to the infirmary since they had taken quite a few hits during the mock battle. Then he looked at Iris and asked if she was okay. Iris replied that she hadn't been hit even once. Alta noted her reply and couldn't help but wonder if Iris was starting to dislike him. As for Iris, she was lost in thought. She couldn't bear the thought of failure. During the mock battle, she felt as if her sword had never once touched Alta. She thought that perhaps this was why people had started calling her the Sword Saint. She wondered if they had really been fighting seriously, and imagined what would have happened if Alta had fought back and used magic. Iris called out to Alta, demanding that he fight her seriously. Alta was surprised by her proposal, and he asked what she meant, insisting that they had been fighting seriously before. Iris began to explain, but was cut off by Alta, who reminded her that she would be late for her next class and advised her to get going. The two left the training area, and Alta reflected on his first day as a temporary teacher. Just then, OTZ, the head of the school year, approached Alta. OTZ introduced himself as the charms instructor and mentioned he'd heard from the headmaster about a night on a secret mission as a teacher. Alta confirmed this, and OTZ's voice grew more serious as he continued. OTZ revealed that he was referring to Iris, explaining that the previous forbidden arts instructor couldn't teach her a thing. He lamented the situation, saying that if someone was chosen as a candidate for the throne, they should have a capable guardian like Alta. OTZ apologized if his presence was an inconvenience. OTZ reassured Alta that he meant no harm, but found the infiltration of the academy fascinating. Alta, still taken aback by OTZ's booming voice, remarked on its volume. OTZ then mentioned that Alta would get along well with the students, and Alta replied that he thought so too, joking that he might have crushed their spirits a little. As Alta entered the classroom, several female students approached him with a barrage of questions. They asked about his background, his hobbies, and his height. Another girl commented on Alta's strength. Another remarked that Alta hadn't beaten them yet. While one more asked him to hang out after class, Alta couldn't help but wonder if he was fitting in a little too well with the students. As he noticed a fleeting glimpse of jealousy in the eyes of the male students. As he left the classroom, Alta told the students to save their questions for the next day. He couldn't help but feel their reaction wasn't quite what he'd expected. Still, he was only a temporary teacher, so he figured it was fine. However, There was still one troublemaker to deal with. Iris approached him, still demanding a serious match. Alta started to walk away, but Iris persisted. Pleading for him to stop, Alta reminded her that they had, in fact, been fighting seriously in the mock battle. He was impressed by Iris's strength, just as expected of the Sword Saint Princess. However, Iris didn't want to be called by that title. She insisted on a duel with him, this time using charms. Alta felt the situation was getting more complicated than he'd anticipated. He explained that there were no duels between teachers and students, and began to worry about the potential trouble, especially with someone like Iris who couldn't accept defeat, someone he didn't want to upset any further. Iris blocked Alta's path and earnestly offered to help him with any mission, to do whatever he needed. Alta, feeling uncomfortable with the idea, said it wasn't appropriate for a girl to say such things. He warned her, "What would you do if I asked you to do something unpleasant?" Iris blushed, and Alta realized his approach had worked. Alta said that if she understood, then everything was fine. Iris replied that it would be fine if Alta wanted her to do something unpleasant, that she had the resolve to face it. Alta took out a small notebook, gently tapped Iris on the head, and said that wasn't resolve, it was a breakdown. He apologized for being harsh, but advised her not to make such offers so lightly. Iris, embarrassed, insisted that she wasn't speaking lightly. Alta found the situation to be a pain. It seemed he couldn't resolve this easily. Finally, he suggested a challenge. If Iris could catch him within 30 minutes, they would have a serious match. But if she couldn't, she would have to drop her request. Iris accepted the challenge, and without hesitation, Alta leaped out the window, declaring that he would hide from her on the school grounds. He admitted it was childish, but he couldn't let Iris win. While running, Alta considered using body enhancement magic. Despite his childlike form, he could still use physical power far beyond that of an adult, thanks to the strength of the previous Sword Saint. Iris, never one to give up, began to chase after Alta, vowing not to let him escape. Alta realized that Iris had some skill, so he couldn't afford to underestimate her. The chase began as Iris and Alta pursued each other around the school grounds. While running, Iris suddenly found herself in an unfamiliar area and quickly became disoriented. She realized there was still time to catch Alta, and there had to be some way to do it. Deciding to retrace her steps, she turned to go back the way she came. However, before she could turn back, something suddenly struck her shoulder from the side. Iris immediately knew it wasn't Alta who had attacked her. As she turned to face her attacker, a group of assassins appeared, coldly stating that they had finally caught her alone. Iris began to feel the effects of a paralyzing poison spreading through her body. Her shoulder was bleeding, and she struggled to move. The assassins gloated, knowing she could no longer use her hands, and Iris fell to the ground, immobilized by the poison. Despite the dangerous situation, Iris refused to accept her fate and struggled to say that she wouldn't die in a place like this. The assassins mocked her, admitting she was the strongest with the title of Sword Saint Princess, even though she now looked like nothing more than a ragged princess. Just then, Alta appeared, and Iris asked if it was him. Alta confirmed his identity. The opponent seemed surprised, remarking that he looked like a small child. Iris warned Alta that the person before them was her enemy and told him to stay back. However, Alta suggested it might be a student in disguise and advised Iris to close her eyes if she wasn't ready for what was about to happen. The assassins scoffed at Alta's arrival, sarcastically calling his appearance grand reinforcements, but questioned what they could do without any weapons. The situation grew more tense. Suddenly, Alta swiftly decapitated one of the attackers, leaving Iris stunned by the power of the blow. She couldn't see the weapon clearly and suspected it was Alta's enhancement magic. One of the remaining enemies, named Azuma, signaled for his comrades to retreat, and they immediately complied. Azuma noted that Alta wasn't pursuing them, and Alta replied that he would if necessary. Among those fleeing, one had distinctly colored hair and exuded a powerful killing intent. Alta realized that Azuma's presence had made him wary of the enemy slowly backing away, which might suggest more reinforcement. He He suspected this group was a team of professional assassins. Reflecting on the situation, Alta realized they had been targeted sooner than expected, confirming Commander Lemire's earlier concerns. Initially, Alta had misunderstood his role as a bodyguard, thinking it was just a formality. However, someone was genuinely plotting to assassinate Iris. Azuma removed his mask, revealing his face, and expressed satisfaction at the chance to face the Sword Saint Princess. Even though he had just been beating down a single girl, he considered the fight somewhat meaningless, but also acknowledged his own good fortune. Azuma then cast off the black cloak he was wearing and introduced himself as Azuma, a member of the Kenkakushu clan. Azuma asked if Alta knew of his group. Iris interjected, saying that almost no one was unaware of the notorious group of assassins. She described the Kenkakushu as a clan of mercenaries, willing to kill anyone, regardless of status, as long as they were paid. Azuma confirmed Iris's description, admitting that it was the truth. Iris remarked that they had finally infiltrated her country. Azuma then told Iris to stay put and turned his attention to Alta. He mused about having to face such a small child, and pondered that in battle, one either talks or it ends in death. Even with his eyes closed, he could feel the fear of death. Alta replied that he didn't share Azuma's excitement. Azuma remarked that the situation was getting more interesting and wished this moment could last forever, but he couldn't hold himself back any longer. Suddenly, as Azuma launched his attack, Alta countered with an empty-handed strike, and their clash created an explosion. Iris couldn't see the path of Alta's blade once again. Azuma realized it was an invisible attack, and Alta was surprised that someone could recognize it. The technique was called invisible, a blade of wind that could be launched at an enemy, a skill improved from Alta's previous life. Azuma revealed that he was also a wind wielder, and expressed surprise at being able to engage in a battle with a user of the forbidden holy sword arts. He found Alta to be a truly interesting and unusual child. The battle between them continued, both using their wind magic. Iris watched in awe as they effortlessly countered each other without even moving. Azuma decided to formalize their encounter as a duel. However, in the midst of the fight, Alta successfully landed a decisive blow to Azuma's chest. Gasping for breath, Azuma asked for Alta's name, and he replied that it was Alta. Azuma expressed his respect for Alta and admitted he was glad he hadn't remained stagnant in the East. He confessed to a surprising sense of excitement at the thought of death in that moment, and with that feeling, he died on the battlefield. Alta silently reflected on the fight, realizing it had been a long time since he'd been able to focus so intently in a battle. Alta acknowledged his own constant sense of unease. Approaching Iris, he apologized for killing two enemies right in front of her, hoping that she now understood his true strength. He held out his hand to her, reassuring her that the enemy was long gone. Iris expressed her gratitude and took his hand, thanking him for his help. Alta noticed that she was still shaken by the event, despite having witnessed the entire fight. Back at the academy, Alta informed Iris that he had finished handling the situation. He breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that Iris wasn't seriously injured and that she hadn't been forced to rely solely on her own strength to fight off the enemy. As her bodyguard, Alta felt the need to reflect on the situation. He sat down and apologized to Iris, admitting that he had frightened her. Iris reassured Alta that she was fine, admitting that she often gets agitated in situations like that. And it seems Iris was used to it. Alta replied that he was born in a very dangerous place, implying that he grew up in a challenging environment. Iris decided to ask Alta again if he was willing to fight her seriously. Since she had caught him earlier, Alta remembered his promise and wondered why she wanted to fight him so badly. He thought about the possible consequences of such a match, considering that it could interfere with the mission Lemire had given him. Alta realized that he needed a good reason to refuse her request. Iris, firm in her goal, explained that at first she only wanted to graduate, as she had promised her mother. But now she aspired to become a knight after finishing her studies. Alta acknowledged her decision and remarked that it was a noble goal, even though everyone still expected her to become a ruler. He supported her aspiration to become a knight. Iris shared her dream with Alta, explaining that she had honed her skills and achieved an undefeated record. However, despite her victories, she didn't feel like she was getting any stronger. When Alta came to the academy, she saw an opportunity to truly become stronger, and she was determined not to let that chance slip away. Alta understood that Iris was well aware of her own level and wished to test her limits by fighting him. He respected her wish and didn't want to disrespect a future colleague, so he agreed to her request. When Iris asked about a time for the match, Alta suggested they shouldn't set a specific time, as determining the outcome could take a long time and be a hassle. Instead, he proposed that they meet like before, after school, to avoid the attention of other students who might not know about their plans. Iris agreed, saying that if this would help her become stronger, she was willing to have a practice match using charms. Alta expressed his willingness to help Iris improve, admitting that this would not only benefit him as her bodyguard, but also help her grow. He realized his responsibilities were expanding, but it felt completely natural under the current circumstances. As Iris left the room, Alta told himself that this situation was perfect for him. He stepped out and saw Iris going down the stairs. Alta mentioned that he would also be using a 24/7 charm. When Iris asked what it meant, he demonstrated the skill for her, showing that it was a skill he possessed. In the forest, where Alta had previously taken down 2 enemies, a man remarked that if they kept using such strong barriers, there would be no more intruders. It seems Kenkakushu was taking the situation very seriously. Alta then decided to head into town for a bit, making the man wonder about his destination. Alta simply replied that he was going to town. Arriving at a tavern, Alta met Lemire, who remarked that she didn't need to come get the report herself, but she had come because of the matter's importance. She offered Alta a drink. And he recalled their first mission, when he was working while Lemire was sipping a drink. Lemire then asked him to report on Iris. Alta expressed his gratitude for his good relationship with Iris, and revealed that he had given her an item with a detection charm on it, allowing him to know her location at all times, and that he could get to her side within 10 minutes if an attack occurred. Lemire appreciated Alta's initiative, but warned him not to abuse this new ability. Alta assured her he had no intention of misusing it. Alta then asked about the progress of the investigation regarding the attackers. Lemire provided information about a man with glasses who had a criminal record and was involved in numerous unresolved incidents both domestically and internationally. Lemire also mentioned that the others who escaped might belong to the same group, but the main concern was still Azuma, who was notorious for causing disturbances everywhere. Lemire had gathered a significant amount of information on their operational records and backgrounds. Furthermore, every member of the strange mercenary group had a bounty on their head. Alta showed interest upon hearing about the bounty, but Lemire reminded him not to focus solely on the money. She mentioned that it was common for bounty hunters to cooperate on jobs, and suggested there was a possibility that other members of Kenkakushu were still present in the imperial city. Alta expressed his concern, realizing the situation was truly serious. He took a sip of his drink and reflected on how he had underestimated Kenkakushu by taking down one of their members without trying to gather more information. Currently, a small team from the Sirius Black Knights is searching for an escapee whose rank is equivalent to Alta's, the high-ranking officer, Blue Sword. Alta admitted that although he had carried out similar missions many times, he had never met this person. Lemire remarked that she always let Alta handle things his own way. Alta explained it was necessary to maintain his secret identity without using an alias while infiltrating the school. Lemire suggested that when the mission was complete, they should have a drink together. Lemire also mentioned Blue Sword, who, despite being young, was very talented, and then asked for Alta's thoughts on that. Alta replied that he would look forward to the meeting, but noted that he was too young to drink alcohol. Lemire jokingly asked why he was being so serious and encouraged him to try a little. Alta wittily replied that perhaps the commander was the one who should be serious in the situation. Lemire then informed Alta that, unfortunately, They still hadn't found any evidence linking to the mastermind behind the plot to assassinate Iris. Alta understood he needed to continue protecting Iris. He thought about Roger's and Blue Sword's capabilities and realized that all they could do for now was wait for some kind of clue to emerge. In the outskirts of the Imperial City, the enemy was hiding out in an old house. Their leader expressed regret that Azuma was dead, but another one scoffs at that, saying Azuma tried to kill Iris and paid for it with his own life. Another member suggests leaving, but the leader quickly kills him, stating that assassins who can't fight are useless and that they only need members of the Kenkakushu. A veteran member of the Kenkakushu scolds the others, reminding them that killing a comrade during a mission is forbidden. The younger member asks about their next move. The woman in the group remarks that it seems Azuma lost to Iris, only to be defeated by a kid, who is Iris's instructor. The younger Kenkakushu member notes that things are getting more interesting, and he expresses his desire to fight that kid with his sashi, a weapon he possesses. The leader, referred to as boss, agrees but says they need to take care of something first. Just then, the knights led by Blue Sword appear. Blue Sword says they've been tracking the Kenkakushu and clearing out their hideouts. Blue Sword acknowledges the boss's presence and says he won't kill them unless they start a fight. However, he demands that the boss come with them. The young assassin compliments Blue Sword on his bold words. The woman in the group then demonstrates her unique sword technique, with no visible blade, and she quickly takes down all the knights except for Blue Sword. The young assassin seems confused by her actions, but she reiterates that they weren't meaningless kills. The young assassin decides to leave, but Blue Sword tries to stop him. In response, the young assassin attacks Blue Sword, telling him they should have some fun together. The woman reveals that the young assassin was their informant, and that they don't really need him anymore. The boss explains that their organization is made up of people who love to kill, so they should just let the young assassin do what he wants. At the academy the next day, Iris and the other students are practicing their swordsmanship. One of the girls remarks that Iris looks so cool, and another wonders if she could ever use a one-handed sword like her. Alta tells them to focus on their training, and one girl says that having knights for protection is a perk of being nobility. However, a boy replies that even if he became a knight, he wouldn't protect her. Alta reflects on how the Kenkakushu's attack has been kept secret, and that things seem quite peaceful now. Watching the students, he realizes that many of them aspire to be knights and have some awareness of the Kenkakushu. Though at a national academy, Iris, destined to be the future king, isn't easily approachable for her classmates. The crisis from the day before is over, and now Iris can focus on her classes. Alta notices Iris seems distracted and tells her to pay attention. However, Arya steps forward and demands a match with Alta, a request that catches the other students' attention. Alta is surprised by Arya's challenge, as it's the first time she's ever spoken to him. He knows very little about Arya, except that she usually seems sleepy and is always with Iris. Still, he doesn't mind accepting the challenge, as he's interested in the idea of a duel. Iris approaches Arya to ask what's gotten into her, and Alta explains that their mock battle on the first day was cut short by the bell, so he's fine with having this match. Arya is excited by the prospect, and Iris mentions that she's fought Alta before. Everyone is ready. Arya and Alta prepare for their match. As Arya draws her sword, Alta thinks that it must take incredible magical control to steadily channel magical power into the practice sword Arya is using. She is the only one in the academy who can use this technique. Alta tells her she can attack whenever she's ready, and Arya immediately strikes. However, Alta dodges it by a hair's breadth. Alta then counterattacks, but Arya dodges it as well. Watching the match, the other students remark that Arya moves as fast as a cat. They can't believe Arya can move that quickly. Alta notices that Arya is carefully looking for an opening, and that she is also very skilled. Suddenly, Arya stops, and Alta asks if something is wrong. Arya says she tried a few different approaches, but feels it's best to go back to her usual way of fighting. When Arya attacks again, Alta notices she has significantly increased her speed. She attacks relentlessly, and Alta feels she's moving so fast that he has to maintain a certain distance. He's surprised by Arya's ability, realizing she's extremely skilled in combat and has a lot of real-world battle experience. He even thinks that Arya might be on par with Azuma. Alta finally remarks that this fight isn't going anywhere, and that it's been enough to confirm her skills. He declares that it's time to end the match. However, Arya doesn't stop, and Alta has to grab her by the hand, reminding her that he told her to stop. Finally, Arya stopped and thanked Alta, acknowledging how strong he was. Alta replied, "I should be the one saying that to you." The other students applauded, and Arya turned back to Iris, asking if she'd been watching the match. Iris replied that she had, and thought Arya was truly amazing. But she wondered why Arya had wanted to fight at all, knowing that Arya was only interested in fighting her. Then, Iris paused for a moment, touched Arya's hair, and asked what had made her act that way. Alta watched them and thought that perhaps Arya also wanted to win back Iris's trust and friendship. Alta found it rather cute and appreciated that Arya hadn't tried to embarrass him out of jealousy. Then, Alta said to the students, "All right, let's get back to training." He looked at the faces of two particular students and added that they were an exception and could continue to develop at their own pace. One of the girls remarked that it was a bit discouraging to hear Alta say that. After a while, the session ended, and a teacher thanked everyone for their hard work. Alta remarked that his work was finally done. Just then, Iris called out to him and explained that she wasn't wearing her uniform to avoid suspicion and was ready for their mock sword battle. The two of them walked into the forest, where Alta announced they had until sunset, but also advised her to take her time and not rush. Iris replied that she was counting on him. Alta said that first, he wanted to see Iris's abilities, prompting her to ask if that was related to their match. Alta replied that she was getting ahead of herself. Iris replied that it wasn't about the match, but that there was something she wanted to ask him. Alta wondered what the other students would think if they saw the two of them out here together. Regardless, he reminded Iris to keep this private training session a secret, and she agreed. Alta then instructed Iris to look straight at him and try to see if she could notice anything. He swung his sword, and Iris replied that she could see it. But when Alta asked for specifics, she confessed that she couldn't see it clearly and probably wouldn't be able to defend against it. Alta appreciated Iris's honesty and noted that she had grasped how to control her sword for speed, which was necessary to defend against his attacks. Iris looked confused, and Alta asked if she remembered Azuma's sword skills. From that, he noted that there was no difference in potential between Iris and Azuma. Alta held his hand out toward her. Iris mentioned the invisible blade. Alta replied that if Azuma could master his forbidden technique, then there was no reason Iris couldn't do the same. Iris expressed her doubts, saying she couldn't believe in something she couldn't see and couldn't defend against an attack she couldn't perceive. Alta proposed a challenge for Iris. He approached a tree and knocked a few leaves loose, then cut them with his sword without looking. Iris was astonished, asking if he had really cut the leaves without looking. Alta confirmed this and explained that, just like when she sensed the killing intent and detected the dagger aimed at her shoulder, it was all a matter of a sixth sense. This was also the technique Azuma had used to counter his invisible blade. Alta reassured Iris that if she could learn to use this sense, then it wouldn't be a problem at all. Alta added that the leaves didn't actually have any killing intent and admitted that this would be very difficult. But that's what this training was for. Iris walked over to a tree, closed her eyes, and swung her sword, but didn't hit a single leaf. Alta remarked that it was a good effort, but that she had missed. He advised her not to get discouraged, as this skill couldn't be mastered right away. However, he stressed that if she couldn't master it, another match with him would be meaningless. He suggested that she should focus on locking onto the leaves first. Iris replied that she would try. That evening, Alta reflected on the days that had passed during Iris's training, as well as his role as a bodyguard at the academy. As he walked alone, Alta noted that there were no issues with the protective barrier, and the night was quiet. Suddenly, he saw Lemire and approached her, asking why she had come to the academy. Lemire looked weary and replied that she couldn't just leave the academy's barrier in Alta's hands. Alta realized that the situation had become more serious. Lemire explained that on the outskirts of the royal capital, in a remote church, a pursuit team led by the Blue Sword Knight, Belle Trousseau, had discovered bodies. In a room at the academy, where Alta, Lemire, and another knight were present. Lemire looked unhappy, so Alta asked her if everything was all right. Lemire explained that they had found the bodies of 9 members of the pursuit team, dead inside an abandoned building. The research team hadn't yet confirmed if the others were still alive or had also been killed, so everyone had returned. At the scene, they found traces indicating Belle had fought to the end, but there were no signs that the enemy was injured. The other knight suggested this was significant, and Alta concluded that the pursuit team had been completely overwhelmed. Alta asked Lemire if that was what she was trying to convey, that their opponent was even stronger than Azuma. Lemire confirmed this, and Alta understood that this must be difficult for her, as she had always cared deeply for her subordinates. Alta sympathized with this feeling, as he was no stranger to it himself. Lemire placed an object on the table and explained that it was an item Belle had left for them. A voice recording device capable of recording conversations. The recording revealed that 3 members of the Kenkakushu gang were involved in the incident. The man leading the group is the ringleader, the woman attacked the knights, and the man killed Belle. The third one is heading to the academy, and they haven't been able to track his movements yet. However, the good news is that only one of them is coming, and the task of dealing with them will fall to Lemire and Alta. Alta called the present knight closer, thinking to himself that they were truly genuine knights. Lemire stressed that this was the situation they were facing, so OTZ would have to cooperate with them. She instructed that if a battle occurred outside the barrier, all personnel should stay away from the campus. OTZ assured her that he understood the instructions. Alta told OTZ to rest easy since he was in charge of the night patrols. If anything unusual happened, Alta would let him know. Lemire teased Alta that he was just trying to earn some extra overtime pay. Alta joked back, agreeing with Lemire and promising to provide her with a timesheet summary. A few days later, at the school, Alta reflected that several days had passed without any attack from the Kenkakushu gang. It had been a week since Alta gave Iris her task. Currently, Alta was with Iris in the forest, where she was practicing her swordsmanship. Iris could lightly feel the leaves, but couldn't leave a single scratch on them. Even so, she remained determined and had no intention of giving up. Alta observed Iris and thought that he had anticipated it would take her time to improve, but so far she couldn't even cut a single leaf. Her current skill was a far cry from being able to protect herself from the Kenkakushu gang. He considered whether he should reveal his true identity as a knight and explain the truth to Iris. However, he worried that if he did, Iris might kick him out of the school due to her hot-headed nature. She might even try to handle the situation on her own, which would cause him no end of trouble. He decided it was best to follow Lemire's orders and focus on training Iris. Alta approached Iris and asked if she was pushing herself too hard. Iris looked at him, and Alta continued, saying that it was great she was working so hard on her training every morning, but he'd heard she'd been dozing off in her other classes. Iris assured Alta that she would be more careful, emphasizing that her morning training with him wasn't recklessness, but serious practice. Alta understood and suggested they take a short break. However, Iris expressed her desire to keep practicing. Alta suggested a change of pace and invited her for some tea. Arya waved from behind a tree, then stepped out and remarked that Alta had finally noticed her. Iris asked Arya why she was there, and Arya explained that she'd noticed Iris had been a little different lately since she wasn't training with her anymore. Iris apologized for her absence and asked Alta to teach her just a little more. Arya nodded in agreement, and Alta realized she'd been secretly watching them for the past week. Alta suggested the 3 of them head to the dining hall to continue their chat. He figured it wouldn't do any harm, and it would give Iris a change of scenery while preventing Arya from demanding a deal out of jealousy. At the dining hall, Arya remarked that Alta was really strong, which explained why he became Iris's instructor. She decided to join them, and both Alta and Iris agreed. They were both quite surprised, and when they looked at Alta, he assured them it hadn't been his intention. Arya came closer and told him it was fine, that he didn't need to worry. Iris cut in, telling Arya to stop there. The three of them agreed that this was fine, but Alta asked that they keep it a secret from the other students. Arya took Iris's hand and declared that this would be their little secret. Alta then suggested they end today's training session there. Arya agreed, but Iris didn't seem completely satisfied, reluctantly saying that if Alta thought so, she would go along with it. Arya reassured her, telling her to just wait and see. Right after that, Arya sliced a leaf without even looking. Iris was stunned and asked Arya if she could really do that. Arya replied nonchalantly, asking if it was really that surprising. Iris nodded, admitting that she understood. Alta couldn't help but notice that Arya hadn't used any of the concealed weapons she had hidden before. Arya was still an enigma in many ways, and for some reason, her identity was guaranteed by the Rainfell family. Alta speculated that perhaps Arya had joined in to help Iris improve faster. When the group arrived at the academy, Iris asked Alta why he wasn't joining them for tea. Alta replied that he was planning to go to sleep, which made Iris point out that the sun hadn't set yet. Arya chimed in, teasing Alta that he was such a kid, but he simply said he was busy. Alta walked away alone, thinking that thanks to the curfew, no one would be out at night. However, he was surprised to see a man dressed in black. That person smashed a stone and warned Alta that if he didn't want to end up like it, he'd better reveal the identity of Azuma's killer. The man questioned whether Alta, a so-called teacher, was the one who killed Azuma, and if he was really just some punk kid. Alta suggested that perhaps this man had broken the barrier from the front. The man explained that he was worried Alta might leave the school before it was too late, but it seemed he was lucky to find him here. Then, he introduced himself as Folt, a member of the Kenkakushu gang, the one who had come to kill Alta and Iris. Folt ordered Alta to draw his sword, and Alta decided to pretend to comply. However, Folt realized that Alta wasn't actually drawing his sword. Alta apologized for the deception. Folt then drew his own weapon, and Alta asked if it was a sword. Folt replied that he would deal with Alta first, and then he would kill the Holy Sword Princess. He demanded Alta tell him where she was. Alta apologized again and told Folt that boys weren't allowed in the girls' dormitory. Folt scoffed at Alta's answer and warned him not to mess with him. Alta realized that Folt's weapon could extend, so he decided that if keeping his distance was ineffective, he'd have to close in for a direct fight. Folt's blade extended significantly, and he revealed that it wasn't just a simple extending blade, but the centipede sword. Alta introduced himself and declared he would fight Folt with the heirloom of the Schweitz family, the green shell sword. Folt seemed amused by the situation, finding it interesting. He launched another attack toward Alta, who used his sword to defend himself. Folt confidently declared that it was useless. Alta realized he couldn't get any closer to Folt, showing surprising caution. Folt explained that trying to cut the sword's threads was pointless, because they were made from the hair of the strongest type of monster, enhanced with his own magical power to be even more durable. Alta knew this fight was going to take some time. Folt announced he was picking up the pace, and he made the blade extend even further. Alta couldn't help but think what a terrifying weapon it was, and that his salary would probably be docked for the necessary repair costs. Meanwhile, Folt succeeded in pushing Alta back. Alta apologized to Folt but confidently assured him that he wouldn't be able to land a hit. Folt warned Alta not to screw around, but Alta already had a plan in mind. He knew he wanted Folt to get more aggressive to create an opening. In a swift moment, Alta cut Folt's hand, stunning him. Folt angrily demanded to know how Alta dared to do that, but then he suddenly stopped moving. Folt realized Alta hadn't just cut his sword's threads. Alta explained that his sword carried a special magical effect, one that inflicted a magic-resistant poison. Alta explained that since Folt's blade moved by the flow of his magic, every time it was touched by Alta's sword, it would accumulate a pseudotoxin that neutralized magic. rendering Folt's blade immobile. The process took a little while, because Folt's blade was exceptionally long, but Alta finally succeeded in paralyzing it. Alta was eager to ask Folt many questions about the Kenkakushu gang. But before continuing, he declared that Folt was under arrest. Folt responded by remarking that Alta's tone was like that of a knight, but Alta quickly cut him off. He pointed out that Folt had lost an arm. Folt, however, adamantly declared that he hadn't lost yet. As their dialogue continued, a third person suddenly appeared, catching Alta's attention. After Folt and the other person fled, Alta mused that they had surely gotten away and were probably even willing to kill to maintain silence. Alta couldn't help but wonder who they had come to save and why that person was so despised that they needed rescuing. He briefly considered chasing them, but realized there might be more people involved, so he couldn't create too much distance between himself and Iris. Alta then asked Iris if she was there, since leaving the dormitory at night was a violation. Iris explained that she wanted to make up for lost time from the afternoon's training session, and she asked if Alta was a knight. Alta confirmed it, sharing that he was the rumored youngest knight from 2 years ago, now on an undercover mission at the academy to protect her. Iris was surprised and remarked that the entire academy knew about this. She also noted that the assassination attempt was still ongoing, and that she was the only one who knew nothing about any of it. Alta apologized for not being able to share the information sooner. Iris reassured him that it was fine since he was just doing his job, and that she was the one being targeted by the Kenkakushu gang. However, she added that she didn't really need a bodyguard. Alta was about to respond, but Iris cut him off, saying that Bell had sacrificed himself to protect her. Alta was surprised to learn that Iris knew Bell. She explained that he had fought Bell in the final Kenjutsu tournament 10 years ago, when she was just a child. Iris mentioned that she had heard Bell became a knight and then a first-class officer, but lost in that tournament. Alta asked why she was against having a bodyguard, but Iris just stood up without answering. Alta wondered if something was wrong and thought he might find out the reason if he asked right now. Iris explained that she wanted to become a protector like her father. Alta noted that he had never met her father in person, but knew he was the former commander of the renowned Black Knights. Iris continued, saying that her father, as the head of the family, and above all a knight, protected his people. To carry on her father's will, Iris was determined not to lose to anyone. She declared that if she was the Kenkakushu gang's target, she would face them head-on and wouldn't mind if Alta joined in to take the gang down. Alta couldn't help but be impressed by Iris's determination, especially since she was only about 15 years old. This explained why she was considered a candidate for the throne. However, he couldn't shake the feeling of approaching danger. Alta decided to confirm something. He mentioned that, from what he knew, the person who assassinated Iris's father had still not been caught. He pointed out that the reason she wanted to become stronger was to get revenge for her father. Iris confirmed that this desire for revenge had been burning inside her since she was just 5 years old. Iris recounted how she used to love practicing swordsmanship with her father after he finished his duties, and the memory of him praising her talent with the sword was a precious one. Her father, the kingdom's strongest knight, was a symbol of pride and admiration. When she was 5 years old one day, she called out to her father but heard a noise from the backyard. Though a little scared, she quietly approached, thinking of her father's strength. When she arrived, she called out to him, and Iris recalled the tragic memory of her father turning to look at her. And suddenly, blood splattered on her face as he died. The enemy had sneered, saying her father had let his guard down while protecting her, and remarked that it was boring. He told Iris to entertain him next time in her father's place, then left her alone in tears. Returning to the present, Iris admitted that she couldn't remember the face of the man who killed her father. And to this day, they still didn't know who he was or where he was, as the incident happened 10 years ago. However, she couldn't give up on her goal of becoming a knight and surpassing her father. Iris asked Alta if seeking revenge for her father was the right thing to do. Alta realized he wasn't good at understanding other people's feelings and had never recognized the deep emotions Iris had been enduring. He also doubted if he could ever fully understand. Even so, he had promised to train her, although he couldn't teach her much. Alta replied that it was fine if Iris wanted to seek revenge. Iris asked again if it was really okay to pursue vengeance, and Alta confirmed that it was. He explained that, as a knight, it was important to have a reason to become strong, no matter what that reason was. He added that protecting something as a knight or growing stronger on a path of revenge were both valid motivations. Iris felt as though Alta might object to her desire for revenge, and Alta realized this, suggesting that perhaps deep down, she also felt it was wrong. He warned her that hesitation could hinder her growth and make her feel disgusted with herself for wanting to be strong just for revenge. Alta believed this hesitation could unconsciously affect the way she used her sword. Iris then asked if she should give up her desire for revenge. Alta noted that it sounded like she was trying to give it up, but ultimately the choice was hers. He emphasized that the drive to become strong needed to be focused on a single purpose, and that was what he wanted to convey as her teacher. He advised her not to swing her sword solely for the purpose of revenge. Iris, gripping her sword tightly, declared that she would use it to protect everyone. Alta reflected on how Iris had expressed what she wanted to say to him and how she had let go of her doubts. He realized that he was still quite new to being a teacher. Alta then asked Iris what she wanted to do next. She replied that she had no intention of running away, and that was why she would stay at the academy. Alta told her he would also stay at the academy, but not as her bodyguard, as her instructor. He pointed out that she still lacked experience when it came to facing the Kenkakushu gang and would need his guidance. Iris agreed, and Alta suggested they continue their training. As the two walked together, Iris decided to ask Alta why he wielded a sword. Alta replied that he did it because he wanted to live an easy life. Iris giggled, saying she knew it was a joke, and she joked that if she could become as strong as Alta for that reason, then life wouldn't be so hard. Alta teased that she was being childish, which Iris immediately denied. Alta couldn't stop thinking about the remaining members of the Kenkakushu gang. As expected, this incident couldn't be kept secret for much longer, and he hoped things would go smoothly for them, especially since they were only one level away from a potentially dangerous situation. Somewhere else, a member of the Kenkakushu gang was on the run, but was quickly surrounded by Lemire and a group of knights from all sides. Lemire ordered the intruder not to move. The woman from the enemy group acknowledged Lemire's presence and drew her sword, but the sword seemed to have no blade. Lemire recognized the enemy as Fis Meeden, the one from the group that had killed her former subordinate. The woman named Fis Meeden said that she disliked feudal wars, but causing trouble was a nuisance. She then attacked the knights and jumped onto a nearby house. Lemire warned the knights not to give chase, because if she went on a rampage with that sword in the middle of the city, the damage would be immense. Lemire asked the knights to report on any civilian injuries, and one of them confirmed they had no casualties. The next day, the school was closed because the public had learned about the Kenkakushu gang's attack. The students were worried about Iris, and one of them asked the teacher about her condition. The teacher reassured them that Iris was fine and that all students had been sent home. From a nearby building, Iris, Alta, and Arya watched the students leave. Iris told Arya that she needed to go home. But Arya refused, not wanting to leave Iris alone with the person she believed had deceived them. Alta admitted that it seemed Arya had also realized he was a knight. Iris apologized, explaining that Arya had forced her to tell everything, and asked if she had done something wrong. Alta reassured her that it was fine, and that he had expected this to happen as soon as Arya found out his true identity. Arya agreed with Iris, expressing her intention to stay by her side for protection. Iris said that they might be rushing things a bit, but she wanted to start their training session. Arya then asked Iris if she could slice a leaf, and Iris replied that she had already caught up to Arya in that skill. Arya suggested they have a match, and Alta supported the idea. He mentioned that the two of them used to spar every day when he wasn't around. He was also curious to see how they would fight. The two of them got ready on the ground below, and Arya launched an attack on Iris. The battle began, and at one point, Arya threw a knife, thinking it would secure her victory. But Iris managed to block it with her sword, surprising Arya. As she had believed it would be the winning move in their match, Iris brought her sword to Arya's neck, declaring victory. Arya conceded, acknowledging Iris's win. Afterwards, she placed a hand on Iris's head and said that she'd gotten a little stronger. Iris felt embarrassed and asked Arya to stop, but Arya insisted on continuing, saying she used to do it for Iris, so she wanted to do the same now. Iris explained that it was to help her wake up from her sleepiness, but Arya didn't back down. Alta observed their session and realized that the Holy Sword Princess had a perfect sparring partner in Arya. Iris was becoming more adept at reacting to attacks from her blind spots, thanks to training her sixth sense. This skill was crucial in serious battles and increased her chances of survival, something essential for a girl as determined as Iris. Alta suggested moving on to the next phase of their training, and both Iris and Arya agreed. Alta placed his sword near a tree trunk, and Arya asked if he wasn't going to use it. He explained that he wouldn't be using a sword, and that they would have to defend themselves against his attacks. They would start at a basic speed, and Iris would go first. Arya watched as they began to spar. Alta warned Iris that he was going to increase the speed and advised her to do her best to defend herself. Iris expressed her determination to try her hardest. The match began, and Alta thought that Iris clearly had the advantage in a one-on-one situation. They moved on to the second speed, and Alta announced that he would perform a series of 5 attacks, with Iris agreeing to defend. After Alta placed his sword at Iris's neck, he declared that round over, and Iris apologized for not being able to continue. Alta reassured her that it was enough for a start. Next, Arya expressed her intention to join in. She faced off against Alta while Iris watched their match. Alta decided to continue with the 5-strike series, and Alta began his attack on Arya, but she successfully blocked all of his strikes. Iris observed Arya's skill and realized that Arya could block all of the attacks, once again showing her proficiency and that she was ahead of her in their training. Impressed by her ability to replicate his techniques after seeing them only once, Alta praised Arya. He then proposed a new challenge, asking both of them to attack him at the same time. Both Iris and Arya agreed to the offer. Alta reassured them that he could handle it and encouraged them to counterattack him. Arya suggested they give it a try, and Alta was pleased with the progress they had both made. Alta felt a sense of joy watching those around him grow and didn't mind being a teacher, realizing that teaching wasn't as bad as he had once thought. After the training session, Alta advised Iris and Arya to take a break, and they planned to resume in an hour. Iris, feeling exhausted, gladly accepted the break. Alta genuinely enjoyed working with young people who were so eager to improve and grow. In Lemire's room, Alta asked her about her arm. She replied that if she had been one step off, her arm would have been severed, emphasizing the danger she had just faced. Lemire admitted that getting injured was the price she paid for spending too much time at her desk. Alta suggested she cut back on her drinking, but she refused. Lemire mentioned that they still knew the identities of the remaining 2 members of the Kenkakushu gang. She presented a picture of the female member, Fis, who had injured Lemire's arm and killed Folt. Fis is the top-ranked member of the group, using a bladeless sword, which makes her a formidable opponent and the number 2 of the Kenkakushu gang. Alta acknowledged how formidable the Kenkakushu members were, especially Fis and Adil, who posed a major threat despite their different fighting styles. Fis, with her bladeless sword, had a mysterious and unpredictable technique that Lemire couldn't fully grasp. Adil, the gang's leader, was a seasoned mercenary in the past and is considered the strongest among them. Alta expressed surprise that such a formidable group was targeting a 15-year-old girl, referring to Iris as a candidate for the throne. It seemed like an excessive and dangerous pursuit for someone so young.